Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece. Episodes 422 and 423, A Deadly Infiltration, the Underwater Prison, Impel Down, and A Reunion in Hell, The Man Who Ate the Chop Chop Fruit. In this episode, we have unexpectedly teamed up, with Buggy the Clown. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned Buggy and somebody asked me what I thought he was up to. And I do not think I said he's in the prison, because this caught me off guard. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. What's up, Florian? So, y'all, I am really surprised that when I started this episode, we jumped back into full-time Luffy. I really thought that because we had just started on seeing where everybody was and what they were up to, that we were going to continue kind of with another couple of episodes where we jumped between them and, see exactly what's going down where Robin is with this work camp and see what's going on with Chopper and this weird bird thing. And it may be that we go back to them after this couple of episodes, but the way this one ended, the second of these two, I get the feeling that we are staying with Luffy for a little bit here. So I'm really, really surprised because I knew his intent was to get here and take care of business without his friends. But I just didn't think he was really gonna do it. I think that's what it really comes down to. I really didn't expect him to actually attempt this all by himself. And I feel very mixed about it, where a part of me is interested, despite myself, to see how this goes when he's alone. But another part of me really misses the crew's coordinating, and it's sort of interesting, how I can kind of roll my eyes at how predictably all of our friends wind up at one location, but then wind up having to split up, and the ways that they usually split, who goes with who. And it can be really similar every time. And then as much as I find myself kind of going, we've seen this before, we do something totally different here, and there's a part of me that's really uncomfortable with it. Genuinely going, but he shouldn't, alone? Come on, So this episode opens with all of the whole thing with Ace. There's a conversation that he is having with Garp, where Garp is telling him about the chat he had with Luffy and finally telling him who Luffy's father is. And Ace has a pretty angry reaction. Garp says it took him by surprise, can't blame the boy. And Ace says, our fathers, plural, to hell with them. And I was like, wait a second. Do they have the same mom, but different fathers? Or was this just a translation mistake? Or because it really sounded from the way he said it, like he was referring to multiple dads and they were both, bullshit, but they were not the same person. And he's he Garp had expressed some hope that maybe Ace and Luffy would become Marines eventually. And Ace says, to hell with you if you ever thought we would be Marines. We've both got the blood of criminals running through our veins, and that was the only gift those bastards ever gave us. I took the name Portgas from my mother because I owe her so much, but I don't owe my father a damned thing. I don't even remember the bastard. He can keep his name. And Garp says, I know, but the man tried. He wanted to. And Ace says, enough. All right? Listen to me. And we get a bit of a flashback where Whitebeard is approaching Ace in like a desolate landscape. It's unclear to me whether or not like Whitebeard was responsible for the desolation. I'm assuming that he is, but it also puzzles me, if he is, why Ace would team up with him. Or like, because, so here's the thing. Whitebeard reaches a hand out to him and says, don't fight it, run wild with us. And there's all kinds of like smoke, and it seems ash floating through the air. And so I'm like, did Ace lose control of his ability? And like, it's a weird thing because, you know, normally whenever you've got a sort of YA story about a person coming into a superpower, you always have to deal with the unintentional uses of the power initially that happen by accident. And then eventually when they attempt to use it on purpose, the power being like wildly out of their control, and they have to work to manage it and get it down to a level that isn't so totally, like, what's the word I want? Like, because the analogy I think of is when you're first using a tool, you don't understand that you don't have to turn it all the way up to high, or that there is a different setting than high. So I'm almost wondering if this scene, Ace did something and is like feeling frustrated and abandoned, and this guy is swooping in, seeing how Ace has a power that could be super useful to him. And, you know, obviously taking advantage of this kid who is in a position where it seems like nobody's really looking out for him. I don't know whether or not Ace is actually... if his mother is still alive, or if he did something to her that he feels guilty about, or what. But yeah, when Whitebeard says to him, join up, our flag will be yours, and I'll call you son, that clearly hits something in Ace. And then we see from, like, the camera goes behind him, and we see the tattoo on his back that is the, like, it's a skull and crossbones, really, but the crossbones are, instead of forming an X, they form a T. I hesitate to say T because a T has a longer tail at the bottom, and this is, you know, equidistant. But you get what I'm saying. Like it's vertical and horizontal instead of diagonal, and then the skull on top has a giant mustache. Because, as we have mentioned, Whitebeard does not have a beard, which is hilarious. And he says, Whitebeard is my only father. Got it, old man? And Garp doesn't look pleased, but he doesn't answer, and he also doesn't move. So, once again, I'm really puzzled about what amount of time is supposed to have passed. Because Garp is over here with Ace in this jail, and it seems like nobody knows he's there. Based on what we have seen from the security team up top, once Luffy and Boa arrive, they keep pretty careful count of people going in and out and watch them fairly closely. And maybe it's simply that Garp has permission to be here. Maybe they recognize that due to the fact that he is family and he is so high level in the Marines that he can just kind of do what the fuck he feels like. So they may fully know that he's there. The thing that I am sort of stuck on is if they didn't know he was there, we have seen in these 2 episodes that there are like video cameras all over the place. And if they didn't know, there's no way that they don't have cameras on Ace's cell. Like, he's the primary get they're dealing with right now. And they're going to be, I think at the end of the first of these 2 episodes, we find out that it's like, how many days until his execution? I feel like they said like 3 days and something hours. I don't remember. But, I'm gonna go with the fact that he's allowed to be here. I am thinking that because of his presence, this might allow Luffy an edge. Like, Garp, I don't feel like he's going to throw in with Luffy in a real obvious way, necessarily. I think that he like values his position in the Marines too much for that. But I do think that he would be willing to sort of like screw up whoever's coming after Luffy and make it more difficult for them and confuse the issue. And then have plausible deniability afterward. Seraphim says the very first version of that Jolly Roger for Whitebeard the Cross was a manji, second line at a 90-degree angle coming off each end of it. Then Oda realized that while in Asia that symbol means something completely benign, not so much in other parts of the world. Oh, no. It took me a minute to understand, like, to visualize what you were describing, Seraphim. But, yeah, so Whitebeard had a fucking swastika with a skull in the middle. That is unfortunate. Wow. Like, it's just such a ubiquitously understood thing here. Like, it's still interesting to me to know that there are cultures who I know they are the ones who originated this symbol, right? Like the use of it. But it got so completely co-opted. And this is the fucking thing, isn't it? White people take shit and then they twist it up and they ruin it and they make it so that the original thing, you've got like baggage around it now. It sucks. So anyway, that's a real bummer. Poor Oda must have been like, oh God, when somebody pointed it out to him. So we go from the cell, Garp and Ace are left, and we go back to Luffy, who is on the ship. They are coming in soon. They're going to be going through the gates. And Luffy is just sitting, hiding still in the chamber that Boa is hiding him in, staring at this scrap of paper with his, that's his brother's Viver card. And that shit is so thin at this point. By the time that Luffy is actually in the jail and, like, trying to find his way around, it's like pencil thin. It looks like, you guys remember having like spiral bound binders and you'd tear a sheet of paper out, but it would like leave a piece of paper in the spiral that you would have to peel out. It's like that thin. Gus says, I think this scene is a flashback / continuation of the scene where Garp first talks to Ace in prison. It's just split before and after the Straw Hat check-in episodes. Okay. I thought that this was supposed to be like an ongoing thing that was happening throughout all of this travel with Luffy, because, you know, he's been on the ocean at this point. I think they said like 3 days. So I thought since it started before or right when he was leaving, that the amount of time he had been traveling was the amount of time that was passing for them as well. Gus says, it seems like Garp is allowed to be here by rank, but he's not supposed to be here because a war is about to start. So Sengoku was mad in the first scene. Oh, right. I forgot about that. Right. Seraphim says, as to Garp, what about him makes you think he cares what anyone else thinks? He's going to do what he wants. It's not about him. It's about their security and why they're not coming down on him. That's my question. You know, they have been so insistent with Boa that I really would think that even if they can't enforce it, that they would be down there like hassling him a little bit and being like, sir, I really must insist you go back upstairs, like that kind of energy. But anyway, okay, so we cut to a pair of binoculars on a flag. And I mean, this is an unmistakable flag. You know, this is Buggy. There's no other clown it could be. And it's funny to me because I think of him as so distinctive, but the Marine who sees this flag is just like, it looks sort of familiar, but he doesn't place it right away. And the Admiral, I'm not sure what the name of the guy with the mohawk ponytail and the like kind of triangular mustache. It's the dude that, you know, Boa has been in conversation with. What is his name, guys? I cannot keep it in my head. I'm going to try and remember, but really no guarantees because I'm not sure how important he's going to continue to be. But I just always, you know, it's difficult every time I realize that, like, I know you've told me and I cannot hold on to that name in my brain. It just slides right off like Teflon. Okay, so whomever he is, these dudes are, you know, looking out at Buggy's ship, trying to decide how much of a threat he is. And this guy decides that if it's not an immediately apparent risk, then we don't have time to deal with it right now. So just leave them alone. And then we cut over to Buggy's ship, and we've got the crew here, including the Lion. They are evidently trying to save Buggy. They're on their way to save him, allegedly. And a huge sea king is like diving into the ocean right next to their boat, and they're sort of freaking out because, reminder, you know, the last time we saw them, I think it might have been the East Blue. It may have been here. I can't remember if Luffy has seen Buggy since coming to the Grand Line. But they obviously are a little bit out of their depth. And it turns out they have Alvida with them. And I know I have mentioned this already, but I just really, really enjoy Alvida's, like, when I think about the transformation and that she doesn't see anything different about herself. That's what I hold on to, even though a part of me is very irritated that there had been a fat, very feminine woman who, like, had total confidence and I was robbed of that. It does suck. I do enjoy that they're keeping, like, the same voice actress for her. So she has a much more mature, raspy voice than you would anticipate from a character who looks like this. But I do really, really miss the original Vita because, I mean, come on. You guys, Halloween around here is actually pretty depressing. Like, I adore Halloween in theory, but ever since moving to Texas, it's been kind of tough because it's not only like warmer a lot further on in the year here than anywhere else that I have ever lived, but also there aren't parties. There aren't lots of things that, like, my husband has friends, but his friends don't tend to throw parties very often. And if they do, they're very low key, the kind of thing that, like, you could just show up in no costume and you would probably be in good company. Like, I really, really want to go all out with my costumes. And I did the first couple of years we were here until I began to realize that, like, even if there's somewhere to go, even if somebody throws a party, we get in the car in these costumes that are sometimes difficult to, like, maneuver in. We drive 10 minutes to their house, get out, are seen by like 6 other people, and then get back in the car and go home. And it's not worth it to do a big elaborate costume, it really bums me out. And that's part of why like I'm going so hard with what I'm wearing to Beyonce and stuff, because I'm going to be in an actual crowd. But I would love to cosplay Alvida, and I would want to do it for like a convention, but I don't really go to conventions, like, especially because of the nature of what I do. There's some worry for me regarding spoilers, but there's also just money. Conventions are expensive to get into. If you want to like, you know, get photos with a celebrity or like a signature or anything, that's expensive. And other than like going to panels, there's only shopping. So I don't tend to go to them. And I have been really like thinking that maybe next year, I don't know. It depends on how far along I am, because if I were to cosplay a One Piece character, my concern is that somebody will say something to me and spoil me on it, you know? And I don't know how likely that even really is, but you can never tell. Folks will just like blurt stuff out, you know? And so I would love to do that like for next year or something, because I would just nail that cosplay. I'm fat. I have short, curly, dark hair. Like I would just be perfect. And it's on my mind, like in the background all the time, because it would be a pretty easy cosplay to pull off. There would not be a lot that I would have to build from scratch. It's an assemblage of weird garments that I would have to alter a little. And anyway, if you guys have thoughts on whether or not it seems likely that somebody might say an offhand comment, like the main question that I have is there anything is there anything specific that happens to her that could get totally ruined for me, I guess, is really what I'm asking. Or is she kind of a safe character to choose? That's all I'm asking. Okay, so the Alvida is like not interested in helping Buggy. They apparently spent all of their money on an eternal log pose. And she's like, you guys dragged the ship out here, and I had nothing to do with it. I didn't tell you that we could manage this. I didn't want to spend this money. And she says, guys, look around. We're about to go into the calm belt. It's all Sea Kings. And you guys just freaked out when you saw the one. Do you really think that you are prepared to deal with what's coming? And then we've got a whole other route that we could take that's all fucking Navy vessels. We are a pirate ship. What exactly was your plan? And evidently they did not think this far ahead. That's what their plan was there wasn't one. They just figured it'd work out. And the guy who has this weird like white ruff of hair, or he looks sort of like the sheep that was the sheep man from the head of, oh my God, the Mary. But a little bit less ram-like. He's got more of a human face, but he still does have like the curled horns at the top of his head. And he's like, well, I thought that just like getting here would be the difficult part, but you telling me that we can't even get in. And the dude with the stripy hair says him and his buddy Ace are going to be killed. And I was like, his buddy? His buddy? What? Since when? Oh my God, are they like friends? I have a lot of questions. And maybe this was like, maybe there was like one of those little side stories. I don't know. But that really, really caught me off guard, that they're being viewed as like a match set by these guys. Oh, Gus is in the chat, says, I don't think you'd get much spoiler comments if you cosplayed Alvida, but you're probably going to see art and stuff from later in the series if you're at a convention. Yes, this is what I like get worried about, because like there's a great likelihood that I would just see like a character art and it wouldn't be specific enough for me to realize like, oh, such and such happened to this character. But there's always a chance, you know? Gus says, remember around Jaya, Ace snuck onto Buggy's ship when he was partying. I don't remember that, Gus. It's like tickling the faintest, but not really. I have lost track of a lot. I don't know how, when you're not consuming things at the rate I am for this show, I don't know how you keep track of like plot threads and stuff. You just have to rely, I would assume, on like the online wikis and stuff. What did people used to do before that? I guess early stages of the internet, there were probably like chat rooms and things like that. And maybe they had like a, you know, the complete compendium to... Seraphim says there was a bit several episodes ago where we get a flash over to Buggy hunting for Luffy. Ace shows up on the ship offering to guide them, and when Buggy saw the Whitebeard tattoo, he went, I am not fucking with that guy, so they just partied. God. I'm afraid that failed entirely to sink in. Sorry, guys. I really feel like the past couple of years have, like, fucked up my brain. And I know that everybody's saying this, but I mean it. I mean it in, like, a not ironic, not ha-ha, adulting kind of way. I mean, like, I think COVID plus the trauma of what's been going on in the country have, like, fucked up my ability to retain information and keep things straight in my head. Because I am straight up losing words, guys, when I'm talking. Like, I'll be searching for a word more often than usual and, like, not able to remember what it was I was trying to say. I was doing an intro with Rashawn the other day. I fucking said my own name wrong, you guys. I said my own name wrong in the intro. Like, that's not great. I feel like that's a bad sign. So, okay. They're just adamant, like, yeah, we've got to help somehow. And as they're talking, the lion, whose name is Richie, keeps crying. And they are assuming that Richie is also mourning for their beloved captain. And they do not understand that, in fact, our lion friend just is very hungry. Our lion friend would actually get along quite well with Luffy if there were a way to, you know, avoid him attacking Luffy or seeing him as an enemy. So I am really... This crew, I'm thinking they're heading this way, but Alvida is like, guys, I don't know what you all thought you were gonna do, but Buggy, his luck has just run out. Y'all are not going to be able to break him out of, like, the highest security prison in the world. And they start yelling and crying about how he has to go out in a blaze of glory and that this can't be how it ends. And they're all talking about sticking with him to the very end and sounding like super committed. The crying, you guys. Oh my God, so much crying. Do you remember how I said it was nice that they showed men crying in, like, the first episodes of the show? Because so much of the time I felt like we were supposed to be, like, upholding the patriarchy and the silent, strong man. And now I realize that, like, anybody on this show cries at the literal drop of a hat, and it's nothing. Anyway, so this is when Alvida says, all right, guys, you want to do that? Fine. I'm going to take the big top and get the hell out of this place. You guys can use, like, a raft or something. And they say, well, what do you mean? This is Buggy's ship, not yours. And she's like, I don't see Buggy anywhere. Do you? I am not going to go throw myself into the jaws of death for that dude. And I'm not going to let this ship go to waste and get caught up by the Navy. I am going to take control of this ship. And if you want to save Buggy, I'm not going to stop you from going, but you're not going on this fucking ship. That's all I got to say. And I love the image that we get of all of them imagining how it would go. The crew piled into this little life raft, and then a giant sea king coming from behind them and just eating the whole ship whole. It's delightful. And she's like, guys, you can do that. Like I said, you're not going to last 5 minutes. Let's be real. And they say, well, we appreciate you, Buggy, and we'll remember you forever. But it's the end of the road. I hope you have a good execution. Maybe it'll be fun. Which is amazing. Maybe it'll be fun. Sure. Okay. Maybe. You guys. So the fact that they're not turning and coming, it really does add a bit of interest to the story for me. Like, I am not sure if I hadn't seen this, what I would have thought, but I'm going to guess that if we weren't given this information, I would expect Buggy's ship to be like out there waiting somewhere on like the sidelines. I don't know. I'm just sort of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I really like that it seems that they're out of the picture, but also the big top, that's like, it's so on brand for Buggy specifically. And I'm trying to imagine what happens if his crew doesn't come back for him. Do they track the crew down somewhere else later? I guess they could do that. It would take a while though. Like, yeah, I don't know. But basically knowing that Buggy is like completely on his own here, it just sort of changes the dynamic for me. So this is when we go back to finally, Luffy and Boa, and, they're like talking about how the gate is going to work to get through. And then we get like this montage of all of the prisoners in the prison being tortured. And it's pretty rough, you guys. Like, there's just lots of people screaming, like, just let me die. Nobody deserves this. We've got a guy being dropped headfirst down a well. Another guy being whipped. There is a weird scene where a bunch of prisoners are like grouped together in a cell, but apparently there was like a pile of food that was just up for grabs, and they have established a way that this works that he either doesn't know about before they tell him, or he just didn't care, and he is just up eating all of the food. And I was like, why is a prison handling things this way? But the dude who's like gonna enforce things comes up behind him, ready to like, you know, beat the hell out of him. And just as he like raises his fists and brings them down on this guy to start fighting, the door to the prison opens and this fucking like minotaur comes in and raises a club. We just see the guy turn to the minotaur with this look of absolute terror on his face. And then a few seconds later, the minotaur is leaving and dragging both of these guys by their ankles. And the prisoners are all cheering for the minotaur, which I'm genuinely like, is it just that they're cheering because they're so bored that they just want something to happen? Like, I didn't really get what the cheering was about. But he throws them in a different cell and locks it. And they're like, hey, I'm not even on death row, buddy. Like, what's going on? Let us out. And they, all of a sudden, there's like a pair of red eyes that open behind them. And they turn and look over their shoulder and start to scream. And we see them like reaching out from between the bars and screaming. But we don't find out exactly what was going on there. I don't know if it's like, because we get a look at some creatures a little bit later that are on ropes that are cut and allowed to attack, I guess. So I think that they're just being straight up executed. I sort of wondered if it was going to be like fight for my entertainment kind of situation, like Jabba the Hutt. You know what I mean? But it seems like it's straight up, we're putting you in the feeding pen. And if it is, I mean, it would make more sense to me, I guess, that the guys were cheering if it were more of an entertainment thing. So I guess that's where I got a little bit tripped up. But so when we go to the ship and Luffy, like Hancock had seen how small the scrap of paper Luffy is clinging to has become. And you can see her getting like really agitated about it. Like she's worried on his behalf. They're coming through the gates and, it's just like the number of ships. He says something like there's even more ships here than there was at the Buster Call, which is surprising, honestly, because I thought that the Buster Call basically like it was all hands on deck. But nevertheless, Lady Hancock, she is being summoned up onto the deck, and she's like, all right, Luffy, you're going to have to be really careful here. I don't know how we're going to deal with this. And they're talking, she talks to him briefly about how few people ever can say they've seen a Buster Call and actually like live to tell about it. And I don't think that Luffy tells her the whole story here. I think that he just sort of is like, yeah, well, you know, I'm one of them. So he gets in under her cloak and they head inside. She is being cheered by the Marines yet again. And I love that she's just like, oh my God, I am so sick of these guys. Can I just turn them into stone again, please? Like, and the reaction when she turns and says basically to shut the hell up, all of the guys are like, oh, she's so beautiful when she's angry. And I was just like, oh my God, you guys, have you ever, ladies out there, show of hands, have you ever had somebody tell you you're so beautiful when you're angry? Because I have. And I very nearly tore his gonads out by the roots with my teeth. I remember the rage that overcame me at this, like the condescension, the like, your emotions are very secondary to whether I want to fuck you right now. I didn't like have the vocabulary to really put words to what was so gross about it. But I just remember feeling like I was going, that kind of rage that you want to start crying, that you're so angry, which will also sort of undermine the way a person sees you, especially men a lot of the time. So you can't let yourself cry. Like, oh my God, I really did not blame her for wanting to turn them to stone. And the captain is like, I think you have humiliated the Marines quite enough for the week. And we are going to just go on without, just ignore them. We're going inside. You won't have to be around them anymore. So, and he tells her, look, you may be a warlord, but you're a pirate and therefore not welcome. They're going to let you in. They'll let you walk around a bit and look at things, but you're going to have to undergo a full body search. And they will also make you wear C prism handcuffs to hold your powers at bay. We have to do this to keep anybody from sneaking in to rescue Ace or any other prisoners. So she whispers this to Luffy, and he just tells her, we'll figure something out. Don't worry about it. So, meanwhile, in the prison, we have two of the weirdest dressed characters for their professions. Guys, it's not even like their costumes are individually so weird. It's for what it is they are supposed to be doing that it is so weird. The dude who's sort of in charge is wearing this like Egyptian headdress that and no shirt, and he's got a almost pair of wings, like I'm not even sure what you would call them, coming up off his back. And I was thinking that we were going to get like a sort of regal, distant personality from him in the style of a god. Like it was supposed to be that he was pretending to be some kind of Egyptian god. But he just behaves really normally. There's like even a sort of goofiness to him. Like he isn't really used to being in charge, and his name is Hannibal, according to my little subtitle here. And when he says, "Welcome to my prison," his face is like all red and foreboding. But when the camera pulls back, you get to see that he isn't actually that impressive. He's quite tall, but otherwise, like, he's paunchy. He seems unsure of himself. He's got really thin arms, like there's no musculature there. And he has two horns that stick out of his head that are flesh colored in the same exact tone as his skin, which I don't know why, but that really squicked me out bad. And he has like what I want to call a khaki, like a green khaki skirt. It's not pants. And this, because like, you know, if you look at Egyptian murals, shirtless and a skirt is not unusual, but because he has such a gut, the skirt is like very low on his hips and it looks so weird. And guys, it has like a cargo pocket like on the skirt. I truly could not, like, what? You fully expect this dude to be in a fucking uniform. And I was almost expecting him to get yelled at for this, and it is not commented on. He also just carries a fucking pitchfork, evidently. Like, that's just his weapon of choice, I guess. But yeah. And he says something about the dumbass warden and then says, "Oh, that's not what I meant. The perfectly competent warden, Magellan, is in his office on level 4. He told me he would like to meet with you." And then he introduces Miss Domino, who he says is like the vice manager of the prison. Now, let's talk about Miss Domino, you guys, because Miss Domino, what a weird combo of looks we've got going on here. Imagine if you were to try and combine sexy nurse with sexy Nazi. It's a jacket that's supposed to be long enough to be a dress, but I would argue probably isn't. Double-breasted. I say that. It's not really, like, I don't know if it counts as double-breasted if there's only one row of buttons, but it crosses over, like, more than halfway in a manner that, like, reminds me of old-school doctor's coats. But there's a pocket on each breast and lapels, and so underneath you can see a white shirt with a black collar and black tie. And the jacket is sort of a tan, like a khaki. And then she's got like elbow length red gloves and thigh high red boots. Her blonde hair is long down her back, and she has a very like SS looking hat at a rakish angle on her head, plus a pair of aviator glasses, which it all combines to be really, really, really bizarre, and it feels like it's straight out of some kind of porn parody. Like, just 100%. And as they're walking, she is describing the things that they do to the prisoners in this, like, what we're supposed to be getting from this is how cold-hearted everybody is, that they can talk about these horrific tortures that they're inflicting on the prisoners with very little emotion and no sense of like the monstrous nature of what they're doing. But because she looks so weird, and because of the voice actress like not intoning much with her voice and the way she talks, it just felt really funny. Like there was something about this that I was just like, man, it's really missing the mark for me. I'm not horrified by all of this. I just find it so funny. She talks about like, oh yeah, here's the bath that we use on the prisoners. It's like boiling water, and it's also like a baptism. So it's, very economical. And I'm like, is it? Why do you care about baptizing them? What do you even mean? And then she brings up Fire Fist Ace, and she's like talking about their celebrity prisoners, which is just so funny to me. She mentions Jimbei of the Seven, which I don't think we've met that one, and former warlord Crocodile, which I'm very excited to see Crocodile again. I hope that we touch base with him. She says both are model prisoners that didn't bat an eye at their little baptism. I bet they didn't, because Crocodile could probably just absorb that water. So she brings Boa into a private room for the pat down, and inevitably we wind up getting a bunch of jokes from the dudes about how, sexy it is, that there's going to be like women touching up on each other and whatnot. And it turns out we've got these security cameras, and these dudes are like watching, and all of this, Boa is trying to like figure out exactly how she's going to manage it. So she sees the camera and glares at it. The dudes are just, of course, totally enchanted with her. And then this woman is trying to put the sea prism cuffs on her, and she's attempting to figure out, how do I get around this and not completely ruin everything for Luffy? So what she does is she does like this real slow sort of turn and go like, be gentle, I'm delicate. And the girl is so caught off guard by her beauty that she becomes susceptible to the love beam, and thus is made into stone. And I actually thought that was kind of fun. I really did. Like, she also, I can't remember what it is she does to the camera, because all of the cameras in the place get focused on her face for a second, because they're all obsessed with her. So I'm watching it now to see how it is that she handles the camera, because these guys' eyes are permanently locked in that weird heart thing. Oh my God. But yeah, so she turns this woman to stone with the love beam. It looks like simply hitting her with the beam also turned, I don't know if it turned the camera to stone, but it definitely like shorted it out, I guess, because when we go into the room where the security guards are watching, it's snow on that particular screen. So yeah, I guess it's just supposed to be sort of a side effect. But yeah, so she's telling Luffy, I'm so sorry that I can't help you further, but this is as far as I can take you. And I need you to really know, if you fucking get caught in here, I don't even know what kind of things they'll do to you. Like, this is super dangerous, and you have better take care of yourself after all of this. And he grabs her hand and says, I won't let you down. You have my word. Thanks for everything, Hancock. You're the best. I won't forget what you've done. Not for the rest of my life. And she is almost catatonic here for a second. Like, he called her by her correct name and thanked her and said he would never forget her. Like, it's a lot. She loses it a little bit. And I love the scene ends with her saying, say my name, Luffy, say my name again. And he just says, oh, what? And then we cut to the outside where the guys are waiting and just kind of going, what do you think is happening in there? And of course he has to be a creep about it and, you know, two hot chicks touching each other. But just as he's about to open the door and kind of go check things out, Hancock comes out and the woman Domino is like acting mostly normal, but she has a hand to her head. And she says something like, I hope that didn't take too long. And then to herself says, I don't know why, but I have the weirdest feeling. And it's like she knows she lost some time there for a second, but can't quite put her finger on what happened. Which, evidently if you get turned to stone, you like forget about it. So that would be quite confusing. Meanwhile, as they're like doing all of this, Luffy is crawling, like hanging onto the rafters. So he's crawling out of the room above their heads. And, oh my God, this fucking dude. The next floor is called the Burning Heat floor, which, you could assume by its name, it's quite hot there, as its name implies. And I don't know why, but again, between him and Domino, the way that this is being handled is so funny. Like, just the acting as if you're on a tour of like a historical site, but it's still happening and it's not being presented like, oh, the horrible things we used to do to each other. It's like, oh no, we're doing this now. And Luffy, he says, like, as he is hanging off the ceiling, he gives Hancock a thumbs up and he says, hey, Hancock, thank you. But she misreads it and thinks he said, Hancock, I love you. And she falls to the ground. The fucking guard says, do you need mouth to mouth? You know what she needs, sir, is her fist to your balls. And Luffy goes down in this elevator. And I think that he's like on top of it. He's trying to figure out where to go. Hancock had told him probably that Ace is underwater. So he is going to have to head down as much as he can. And he pulls out the Viva card, like, again, you guys, it is so small. It's almost gone. And he winds up... I'm so sorry, you guys. I keep getting distracted because the camera continually, like, cuts away to the underwater. And every time it's, like, doing something else with it. But this is the time where a Sea King is confronted with these weird creatures that are apparently bringing up meat, like, they got dinner. Do we find out in these episodes what the names of these creatures are? They are so weird looking. They're blue and they have I hesitate to call it a hood over their heads because a hood implies that there's like an opening and there isn't. It's just a sheet. It feels like draped over their head, and there's a skull drawn on it. And they have these big round bodies, but these really skinny like legs and arms. And they're apparently extremely good swimmers. They're really fast, but they seem to only have the intelligence of like an attack dog, maybe. They don't seem to have the intelligence of a full-on human being. So yeah, it's just I don't know what these guys are, but I am interested in finding out because we've never seen whatever these are anywhere else that I can recall. So this is something specific to this prison. And I'm just like, are they like turning people into these? Is this a Moria sort of situation where the creature that's out there, the creatures that we see walking around are just like the result of what they're doing to the prisoners? So this is when we cut over to Buggy. And apparently he has just busted out of the jail with his chop chop method. He has got very long, lustrous blue hair. I don't remember his hair being this long, but it's a look. I really like it. Okay. Gus says she turns the camera to stone too. The snail got heart eyes. I totally missed that. Thank you. But yeah, the guys are like, Buggy, how can you leave us here? And he's like, how can I leave you here? You guys are acting like you're my friends. I don't give a shit about you. I'm going to get the fuck out of here and fuck all y'all. It's too bad you can't do what I do. Sucks for you. Bye. And I love one of the guys says, you're not going to get away with this. And Buggy just gets this big grin and says, looks like I'm getting away with it just fine. That does not last. He's like, trying to sneak down the halls that have security cameras all over the place. And they're in spots where he can't see them necessarily without poking his head around the corner to like, ensure that it's all clear. And that is how he gets caught. It's like almost immediate. He barely turns one corner and boom, caught. And, yeah, I love him just breaking out into a sweat and holding a hand up and going, hi, fellas. So he's yelling to the snail about how it's his fault and punches it. I'm like, maybe you could just punch these cameras, before you go around the corner. Meanwhile, all the dudes that he just left there are cracking up because he is getting caught so quickly. And I can't help but understand, we cut back to Luffy. He is trying to find another way down. He's gone down as many stairs as he could find. And he overhears some guards and he sees that they're going through another doorway that goes further down and is like, aha, okay, let me head down that way. Then he hears Buggy screaming. And for a second is like, what's that? But then it's none of my business. I got shit to do. I gotta go. And we see Buggy getting like cornered by these creatures. He just calls them a bunch of jerks. I mean, that feels fair enough. And we get one of those classic like chases where there are all of these different walkways and like bridges and stuff that are intersecting on different levels. And so we're seeing like Buggy cross one way and Luffy cross the other way. And eventually Buggy is in a spot where he like looks over and there's a button that just says danger and it's got a big skull and crossbones on it. And he's like, why do you even need to say danger? It's a skull and crossbones. Who's going to press that button? But then one of those creatures startles him and he hits it by accident. And we get the wildest, like, Super Mario security system you ever saw. It's all of these, like, spiked blocks dropping from the ceiling that Luffy is having to dodge. And then a bunch of arrows coming out of the walls like it's Indiana Jones. It's funny. I can't help it. It's funny. Like they're just like straight up kill whoever sets this off. And Luffy is like, who the hell set these off? And it didn't occur to me that maybe he might think they were catching him. We know that it has nothing to do with him, but there's a couple guards who spot him and come running after him and they fall into one of the trap doors. Which, again, it feels like you don't want to set up this sort of security system if your dudes are all going to maybe fall into the same traps as your prisoners. I'm just saying. one of the guys in one of the jail cells is like, hey, how'd you get out? You gotta let us out. And Luffy's like, I came in from the outside. I'm not in prison here. And they think maybe he's a jailer. I love Luffy just saying, you guys have some really bad attitudes. Do any of you know where I can find Ace? And I'm just like, what a weird... Those are not... It's just a weird segue. You've got bad attitudes. Hey, can you help me out? You probably don't want to start off with bad attitudes, accusations before asking for a favor. But, yeah, when he asks, they're like, oh, the guy on death row? And he says, yeah, I came to bust him out of this place. And everybody's like, okay, like, go ahead. Sure. Give it a try. But he's probably going to be down on level 5. And there is no way you're getting down that far. That's where they hold everybody who's got 100 million berry bounty or more. It is serious down there. And the other dude says, while you're here, you think you could run to the jailer's room and pick up some keys? Yeah, buddy, wouldn't be no trouble, right? And I love this because, like, I shouldn't be rooting for Luffy to do this. Like, probably these guys are terrible, terrible people. They're likely here for a reason. But just like real prison, it's just like, what is this helping? It's just providing sadists with a supply of human bodies to torment. Like, it's not, you're not doing anything to set things right. So anyway, as they're trying to convince him, Buggy comes sprinting down the hall. Oh, the Blue Gories, that's what they're called. They're chasing him. One of the guys is yelling like, you gotta hurry, they're gonna kill you. And they bring down like an axe and almost chop Buggy. No, they do chop Buggy in half. Oh my God. I love that. I didn't even realize the first time that wasn't just like an animation thing, that he literally was chopped in half, but that's very funny. And Luffy is just like, I can't fucking believe that I'm dealing with this guy again. Buggy, when he looks over and realizes who Luffy is, turns into a million parts out of surprise, like expands. And I love it when Buggy is like, how can you even be here? And Luffy looks over and goes, oh, Buggy. And Buggy just yells, thanks for reminding me why I hate you. I see prison hasn't made you any less annoying. Oh, God. So then Buggy tries to hold it over Luffy's head that he got arrested and is in jail. And Luffy is like, dude, I'm like just here because of my own reasons. I'm not like a prisoner. Only idiots get arrested. So then Buggy tries to say, oh, you're here to rescue me, aren't you? That's what it is. And he starts getting teary-eyed, but then says, ew, I'm not into you, weirdo. And I was like, oh boy, can't help ourselves, huh? We have to sexualize the possibility of lesbians earlier in this episode, but then be super homophobic right here for like no reason. Like what are you talking about? So at this point, Buggy's trying to grab the front of Luffy's shirt. Luffy grabs his mouth in response. Buggy grabs Luffy's mouth in response. So they're running down the hall, like gripping at one another. It's so weird. Guys, focus. What are you doing? And one of the Blue Gory almost chops them at this point. Buggy's like, this was supposed to be easy. I called it Buggy's peaceful escape plan, to which Luffy says, who cares? I don't know why, but him just saying who cares, that cracked me up. Just genuinely like, I'm not engaging with you. Stop this. So let's see here. Okay. Clearly you've thought this out. I'm on a mission here. My cover's already blown, so I got to get this done in a hurry. And Buggy says, that's the number one reason why I hate you and that redhead so much. Both of you are always so optimistic in the worst way possible. And I thought he meant Nami, but Luffy pictures Shanks, and I was like, oh, right. Buggy used to know Shanks. I thought he meant Nami, and I was like, I wouldn't really think Nami was like somebody that I would call optimistic. But Shanks, yes, that makes sense. So they finally come to a stop, and Buggy's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just going to cause some chaos. And Luffy's like, all right, that sounds good to me. And Buggy sends one of his fists flying, and Luffy does his elastifist. And the two of them are like, yeah, got it. But even as they say, yeah, got it, I can't help but notice that there's like a couple of Bluegories right behind them. So, just feels like maybe you don't got it. That's all I'm saying. All right, I have to wrap, but thank you guys again for hanging out with me. And thank you to Florian so much for commissioning this episode. Really appreciate all of y'all. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just really quick. Gus says, tidbit from SBS. I don't know what that means, but when Buggy wears his pirate hat, he threads his long hair through the corners and it looks like tassels. So yeah, we didn't see he had long hair last time. Oh, okay. What a weird way to wear a hat. Why not, I guess. All right, guys. I will be seeing you, I think, tomorrow. Because no episode tomorrow. I lie. I will not be seeing you for a couple weeks, actually, because I'm also going to be taking the week of my birthday off. So it won't be until October 10th that there's another episode. So don't miss me too much. Love you all. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.